Hi everyone, Miki Jacobs here. Welcome to Angel Chat. It is, what is it? Mid-November, and it is so warm here in Southern California. So I don't mean to make you jealous if you live in a cold state. Nonetheless, we kind of miss the cold a little bit. It's nice once in a while to be in a home where it's the fireplace is on and it's cool outside, but we just don't seem to get there. So it's, as you can see by my clothes, it's very much warm here and it's almost Thanksgiving. So anyway, I don't know, I just thought I'll express that out loud. Today we're going to talk about sexual abuse, that unfortunately a very difficult topic, and I got a lot of emails lately as a request to talk about sexual abuse. Of course, as it's related to the soul journey, to our journey on planet Earth, and so I thought I'm going to include a specific topic for that. It is important that obviously when there are kind of a big topics, meaning that topics that are more difficult to accept, the spiritual concept, then I always, as you've heard me say in the past, to stay an open mind, to try to kind of separate yourself from your mind a little bit, because obviously if we let the mind decide, is there anything that is plain or good, if you will, about sexual abuse, specifically of children when they grow up, then obviously the obvious answer is no. There's nothing good for that. But as you know, the concept of talking about spiritual topics is that the perspective of the soul as to what the soul gets out of it and why things can happen, such a war, evil act, which is of course as well as sexual abuse, then it's completely different than that of the mind. So before kind of diving into that, the information, then please stay an open mind, as I asked you numerous times in the past when it's come to difficult topics. So first and foremost, let's kind of focus on children's sexual abuse. Obviously, there's also sexual abuse for adults, but let's focus on children's sexual abuse for a lot of people that experience sexual abuse while growing up. So first of all, you remember that I talked about in the past that those are not kids. What does that mean? Does that mean that they're not young and tender and fragile? Yes, it does. They are, of course, they're children. But from the perspective of spirituality, those are not kids, the same way that every single reading, the spirits tell people, those are not your kids. They're soul with their own journey and lesson and karma to balance and challenges. So you brought them to the world, but they're not your kids. They have their own journey. So the same thing when we look into sexual abuse, as to why sometimes kids belong to family where they experience sexual abuse by one of the parents or friend or uncle or whatever it is. So it's important first, before understanding sexual abuse, as to why that happened to some souls that happen to be souls of children, is that they're not children, that everything significant to us, as you can recall from previous topic, whether it is when we kids, what family unit we, the soul, choose to incarnate into, what part of the world, the way we are, the way the body, the way the challenges, weaknesses, everything was our choice. So sometimes sexual abuse of kids indeed is part of the soul journey. Again, difficult to understand, yet very much the spiritual truth. This is information, of course, that I channel from spirits that cross over and explain to me as to why they experience sexual abuse on planet Earth. So indeed, sometimes, not always, there's never always. There is a lot of things that is planned by our soul as a part of the incarnation, and there's a lot of things that we accumulate or face with or going through on planet Earth. As you've heard me say numerous times in the past, I call it a risk risky planet. This is a harsh planet that although accelerate growth for our soul, nonetheless it's very difficult because it is planet that governed by the human being ego. Unfortunately, spirituality doesn't govern our planet yet, but the ego is. So a lot of things come later without being planned part of the incarnation. But sexual abuse, a lot of time I found that indeed the soul of the child, obviously not the child that at the age of 10 or 7 years old does not understand as to what to choose or not to choose. Of course, when it's come to the children, it's obviously not fault, but going through that experience. But from the perspective of the soul, I did channel that sometimes sexual abuse indeed is part of the journey, and therefore the agreement was from the soul of the person that abused the child as well as the soul of the child. Of course, the next logical question would be, why is it? So, as you know, again from previous information that I teach, that there is a lot of reason for that. Sometimes I channel information that indeed, again, it's a part of a karma, meaning that the perpetrator that we would call on planet Earth a pervert, obviously that's what it's looked to us, and it's normal for us to express that. But from the perspective of the soul of both people, the child of the soul that being abused as well as the perpetrator, there is an exchange in energy, meaning that sometimes in the past life, whether it is the last life, 2 lifetimes ago, or 50 lifetimes ago, those two energies were switched, meaning that the soul that is a perpetrator indeed was the victim in previous life. So when it's come to that, the agreement with both soul, agreement, no force, no punishment, agreement by both souls that it's going to have to be switched in order to balance the energy. So really from I suppose it's a little bit twisted, then from what we look at it, it's kind of a loving act because there is an agreement with both soul to balance their energy from a previous failure of the ego. So in previous life, the perpetrator was the victim. When those souls cross over to the spirit world and review the life and realize what the ego did, the personality, the weakness of being a human being, then they needed to switch in order to balance the energy, which karma, as you can recall, is balancing any negative act by the personality, taint the energy field of the soul, and therefore need to be balanced. So sometimes sexual abuse indeed is pre-designed by the soul of the child, of the abuser, of the victim. So so that's one of the reasons as to why sometimes you know, sexual abuse just happen from a father, or I mean, this is something that a lot of time parents do not know about. And of course, if you don't open to the concept that sometimes the soul, no matter how horrific the experience is, not just sexual abuse, a lot of other horrific experiences, indeed from the perspective of the soul that does not afraid of planet Earth, don't look at life the way we look at life, which is an evil act. Of course it is. How can it not be? But that is indeed the explanation of sexual abuse among other evil acts. Because we touched the concept about a risky planet, the planet Earth is a risky, harsh planet because it's governed by the ego, the byproduct of the human being mind that can be very negative, very destructive, and dangerous. Sometimes when a soul, when we incarnate into planet Earth, if it's a child and the mom or the father have a wrong decision and just marry the wrong man or the wrong woman, that unfortunately abuse the stepkids. So of course you see that a lot. But meaning it's not something that was pre-designed, but that's something that of course come as a way of life on planet Earth. But even when that happened, even where for us we call it unfortunate or bad luck, or the mom, let's say, choose a man that start abusing abusing her kids. Is it bad? Again, from our perspective, I suppose it's bad. I mean, she chose the wrong man, if we stick to that example. But there is still growth. No matter what's happened to us on planet Earth, no matter what experience, whether they're pre-designed or we kind of accumulated, over as the life progressed, there is always spiritual growth. There is no any experience on planet Earth that just happened to us. Nothing. No sexual abuse, no illness, no accident. Nothing is accident. Everything is a perspective of the soul, growth. Also, you have to remember that if there is a child being abused by a parent or uncle or whoever, that was not pre-designed, meaning it wasn't supposed to be incarnation. There is something that's called karma, which we just spoke about it at the beginning of the video, that perpetrator soul gonna have to balance his or her energy. So indeed, in another life or at the same life, it's not always just another life. It could be at the same life when things would be balanced, meaning what we call it, they would pay the consequences, if you will. I don't quite like to mention the word consequences, although it is because this is an automatic process that the soul must go through. It just must. So if again the mom chooses the wrong husband, it's being abusing of the kids, then obviously that would have to be balanced, where that perpetrator will have to pay back karma to the universe in order to adjust its energy. So the email that I got is a request to talk about that for people that when you go through stuff, or worse, when your kids go through a sexual abuse, obviously those are concepts that you do not want to hear about, you don't want to entertain. There is a lot of anger, a lot of disappointment, a lot of parents, a lot of mom tell me, I cannot believe that I wasn't aware of it, that I didn't protect my children. So, which why I say always in difficult topic is just be open to the possibility that sometimes, because this is a school, because our soul, not Miki, the soul in the body, use every minute of life in the physical body as an opportunity to grow. And what better growth than a very, very difficult experiences? If we would come here and life would be easy, there will be no effective growth as far as the soul is concerned, of course. As to us, the human being, who wants sexual abuse? I mean, as a parent, I'm sure that's the number one fear. Specifically, there's a new male coming to the house, or there's a new marriage, of course. But as a spiritual human being, it is very important to be open to opportunity, that there is a lot of things that has to do with horrific experiences, and a lot of it, not sometimes, but a lot of it, it's actually the decision of the souls. And if they happen to be kids, then you have to understand they're not kids. They just chose that age to go through that experience. Sometimes that experience is supposed to teach perhaps the parents that didn't pay attention. Sometimes it's not just karma. Sometimes the sexual abuse that was pre-designed by the soul actually is quite heroic act in order to teach the souls around, to teach the soul itself. So there's so many multi-level as to why things happen to us, and in this case, of course, sexual abuse of children. Having said that, obviously, continue to protect the kids. Of course, that has nothing to do with that, because as we discussed, this is a dangerous planet, a lot of ego, a lot of people that get distracted by the negativity of the mind, and that has nothing to do with just, go by life and say, okay, then everything's pre-designed. No, of course not. You need to apply wisdom to your life. Nonetheless, some of the reason of sexual abuse is indeed very much planned by all the souls involved. So I hope that would, perhaps send you in the right direction, especially if you or loved one experience any, sexual abuse in your childhood, in, people that that then all I ask is kind of poke at the idea and open to the possibility of this concept. So thank you very much and have yourself a fantastic week, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.